Welcome to Watch Symposium. I'm Austin, and this is a paid video for John. All right, John writes, "Hello, Austin. John here in Utah, USA. Question: have you seen or do you have access to the Japan-only 116263 Rolex Turn-o-graph Datejust with the green second hand and date in your awesome travels? Thinking of finding one with a black or white dial. Thought I'd ask. Thanks and keep up the good work." Thank you for the question, John. All right, so he's talking about I'm not going to call it a limited edition watch, but it was certainly a limited production watch in the early 2000s that was only sold here in Japan. They only made 600 of these turnographs, and we're going to look at some examples for sale. But before we do, let's just talk about really quickly in general the turnograph. Now, the turnograph was produced from 1953 until 2011. In 2011, they stopped the production of the turnograph. And you're looking right here at a turnograph from 1966. And what's characteristic about it is the rotating bezel that you can time things with. And again, it was released first in 1953, the reference 6206. It preceded the Submariner and the GMTs, and it's regarded by many as the father and certainly the predecessor to those hugely popular rotating informational bezel watches. And why was it not so popular? We'll talk a little bit about that maybe at the end of the video, but in 2000, they released a 6-digit version, and it ran for 11 years before they ended things. And during that time, in Japan, they released, a version with different accents than the typical turnograph at the time. Now, just to get an idea of prices, let's look at some regular turnographs here in Japan for sale. Okay, so this right here is the cheapest I could find. It's a black dialed two-tone turnograph. And by the way, we're looking at two-tone turnographs, the 116263, and this is 833,000 yen. I want you to take note of the accents, red second hand. Turnograph is written in red, and the date is in red. All right. Now, when it comes to these typical 116263s, this is the most expensive. 938,000 yen. It's a white dial version. It's an F serial, which means it would have come out in 2003, 2004, or 2005. And again, the red accents, okay? Now, we're not quite sure why they did it or exactly when they did it, but it seemed to be during the F serials and the D serials. So that would be 2004 to 2006, but you might have been able to find them later. They released this 116263 with green accents. And again, only here in Japan, 600 pieces only, 300 white dialed turnographs and 300 black dialed turnographs. Now, we've seen the cheapest typical turnograph here in Japan and the most expensive. What do they start, these limited production green turnographs? Well, this is the cheapest one, and it's 1,195,000 yen, and that's about 3,000 or 4,000 yen more than the red accented turnographs. And again, it's probably a completely different video. Is it worth it? Is it not? Well, let me just touch on that for a minute. I've got two hats. The regular person hat, when I put on that hat, I look at this watch and I think, wow, 4,000 for green accents. I mean, I don't even like the green accents. I like the red more. But even if you like the green more, 4,000 USD more for green accents. Ridiculous. All right, that's the regular person's hat. That's what my mother would think probably. And rightly so, okay? But when I put on my Rolex enthusiast cap and I look at it, I'm like, whoa, that's cool. And I really almost think that it could be worth it. I mean, look, it's one of those watches that if you like two-tone watches, you love turnographs, and you love green, it could be a grail. And look, you know, is it worth it? It depends on the person. I mean, if you're willing to pay for it, sure. And are there people that are worth paying 4,000 more to look down at their wrist and know they have something really special? Absolutely. And think about this. I mean, there's only 600 of these in the world. So it's a pretty special watch. And while it doesn't appeal to me, you know, if you told me that in the early 2000s in Australia, there was a small batch of pre-ceramic 16710s, the GMT Master 2s, that had a blue 24-hour hand and GMT was written in blue. I would pay thousands for that, all right? Because it's worth it? No, because I would get such a kick of looking down at that special, you know, rare model. And of course, a lot of people are going to think it's going to make money in the future and go up, and so they're going to be investors and speculators in regards to this watch. All right, so we've looked at the cheapest, and as you can see, it's box papers. This seems to be the deal right here of all of these. Okay, you know, again, 1,195,000 yen, box and papers, full set, white dial. All right, the next one is 30 bucks more. It's a black dial, but no box, no papers. It has service papers, which for this particular model, I would demand a full set. And I'll talk about why I would a little bit later, but I think this is a bit unreasonable. Yeah. All right, next, third piece, 1,300,500 yen. And this seems to have box and papers. It's white dialed Turn-o-graph. And then the fourth piece, a D serial, so 2005 or 2006, just like that first white dial piece we looked at. This is 306,540 yen, comes with box and papers. So this seems to be the cheapest full set black dial of these limited production Turn-o-graphs. Which do I like more? I gotta say, I think I like the white dial more because you can really appreciate the green more. All right, fifth, we've got another D serial from 2005, and this is 1,315,186 yen, and it comes with the card, okay? And, you know, again, why would you be buying this one when you could go with that that cheaper full set black? I guess condition of the watch is a factor, but again, full set I think would be really important. All right, the next piece is a big jump in price. This is 1,418,000 yen, card only. Okay, this is a black dial version, as you can see. And then you've got another black dial version. This is a full set, and it's 1,443,000 yen. All right, and then the last piece is the best piece. It's a completely unused stickered black dial, and this is got box and papers, and it's 1,680,000 yen. And look, that's quite a bit more expensive than the first one. I mean, that's a good 4,000 yen more. But if you've got the cash and you love this watch, that untouched stickered piece, it's pretty amazing, I gotta say. I mean, it's one of those watches where you wouldn't, if you want to keep it, you know, a potential investment, you wouldn't want to wear it, you wouldn't want to touch it. But it would be pretty amazing to have. And just keep in mind, I mean, there are only 600 of these pieces. And imagine this day and time if they were to release a Rolex watch and only state that they're making 600 of them. I mean, they would, right off the bat, they would be more expensive than this totally untouched stickered piece. So this is kind of, I don't want to say a good deal, but it makes perfect sense. And you know, again, it depends on what hat you're wearing. If you're wearing just the average person hat, you know, you can get a lot more watch for a lot less money, but the colors are going to be different. So it makes perfect sense, this watch at that price, and at the same time it makes no sense, if that makes any sense. All right, so there you go, John. Now let's talk about why I think papers would be really important with this watch. In fact, full set. You'd want probably the receipt with this watch. You would want to know that it was purchased in Japan. Why? Well, because I would be really afraid of this watch being faked. I mean, if you got a hold of one of these just regular red accented turnographs and you sourced a green second hand and a green date wheel, and you got somebody to paint the dial, I think you could pretty easily make one of these. And that's why I think it would be so important to have a full set, but not just a full set, but the receipt saying it was purchased in Japan, okay? Now, interesting story. People have bought these and have tried to have them serviced in other countries. In fact, they actually have problems. I remember reading an account of a guy that was pulled aside, and they said, you know, we think that there are fake parts in this. And they had never heard of this, right? And in fact, there was a guy that worked for Rolex in the United States that actually stated that Rolex never did this. He was unaware of it. And later on, he actually retracted that. He was emailing a friend and said, no, I'm sorry, like, it did exist. So my whole point is that there's not a lot of like record of this happening, and so if you take it to another country, they might say that those parts are not real, and you know, God forbid that they try to change the parts and put the red accented parts in, but it's just something to keep in mind. And them not knowing that they exist and not being able to check their records easily could mean that a regular one that's been messed with and made to look green could exist. So again, I wouldn't even think about one of these pieces unless it came with a receipt, a purchase receipt from Japan. All right, so now as far as the popularity of the Turn-o-graph, you know, it's an interesting watch, and you know, I think it never really had its own identity. You know, the only thing that really makes a Turn-o-graph back in the day when it was first released was the rotating timeable bezel. You know, it was made in steel, in two-tone, in solid gold. They made it on the Jubilee bracelet. They made it on the Oyster bracelet. They put Mercedes hands in some models. They put more Datejust-esque hands in some models. You know, some models had the 12 indices as a coronet, like a Datejust. Others had a triangle, like an Explorer with the coronet below that. So there was really nothing that contributed to the identity of the watch. And also, it didn't have a persona. It wasn't a dive watch. It wasn't a jet-setting pilot's watch. It wasn't a spelunking watch. It was just a watch with a timeable bezel. And so, in the end, I think it was a watch that was sort of a jack of all trades and a king of none. And you know, you can see the early Turn-o-graphs. They look very sub-ish, but as the production headed towards its demise in 2011, it started to take on more of a Datejust look. You know, the indices at the 12 had a coronet. They used the fluted bezel, and it just started to look like a Datejust. And you know, in the end, I think when somebody wants a Datejust, they want sort of the archetype of the businessman's watch, and you know, a fluted bezel, Jubilee braceleted Datejust fits the bill for that, and having that rotating bezel just sort of takes away from it. And so I can see why it wouldn't appeal to that demographic. And if you're looking for, you know, the professional watches, the subs, the GMTs, it doesn't look like a to watch. It's a little bit small compared to those. And so really, I don't think there was ever a place or an identity for that watch. But it's the predecessor to so many of the watches we love. And for that reason, I like it, I respect it. I want to look at it as sort of the father of something like this. And can you? I guess so. Or you can look at it instead of a father as a failure with one distinctive feature, the rotating bezel, that went on to be featured in much more popular models. So whether you look at the Turn-o-graph as a father of these watches or a failure preceding these watches, I guess that depends on the person. I mean, the question you need to ask yourself is, if you can't marry a supermodel, is a second best option to marry her mother? Is worth discussing, thinking about. All right. Well, thanks again, John, for the question. And if you come to Japan, you will be able to find these. Thanks for watching. Let me know what you think about this interesting limited production Turn-o-graph, and I'll see you next time.